Boys and girls, this is Mr. Manice here again with another super cool video. In this video I'm going to walk you through each of the problems on our radicals quiz review, where we are simplifying radicals and performing operations with radicals. My disclaimer as always is I need you guys to work out these problems first on your own, try what you can, and then come to the video or check out the solutions online and see where you might have made any mistakes. So my Clemson reference today is I've got some, in light of our recent probability unit here, got some dice here with different colors on, and we've got these lovely wonderful orange colors. We've got purple on here, we've got orange and purple. Maybe that would be a good bonus question, or what is the probability of rolling Clemson colors on two different dice here? That probably would have been a good test question. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump right in, and before we get started, guys, with all these square roots, I want to come over here and make a little cheat sheet of all of our perfect squares. So I would highly suggest that you guys take 30 seconds, 20, 30 seconds, and just come up off to the side of your quiz and just write these numbers down so that you don't have to think about these anymore. So 1 squared, of course, is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81, 10 squared is 100, 11 squared is 121, and 12 squared is 144. So hopefully you guys have all these numbers memorized, but this will be a good little cheat sheet for us to use as we work through some of these problems. Okay, so number 1, guys, we got the square root of 50. So if you're watching this video and you don't have me as a teacher, then you may not explain this kind of a little differently in a way that you might not have seen before, but this is the way that I kind of explain it. I'm going to take this non-perfect square. The square root of 50 is not a perfect square. It's not one of these numbers over here, okay? So that means it's non-perfect. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to break this down into what I call perfect land and non-perfect land. We're going to have two different planets. We've got the non-perfect and we've got the perfect. So I'm going to write, this will be the only time I write this, I'm literally going to write the words perfect land. Okay, and then over here I'm going to write non-perfect land. Just the way that I teach it. Okay, so I'm going to break this down into two different radicals. I'm going to have a radical over here and a radical over here. And I'm going to put one that's in perfect land. How do I know what number to put in there? They're simply going to look at our cheat sheet, and I'm going to find which is the highest one of our perfect squares. In other words, which one of these numbers over here, the highest number that divides evenly into 50. You can't just use two random numbers. I can't use 5 and 10 because 5 and 10, neither of those numbers are on this list. So it's got to be a perfect square. So of course you guys will recognize this in a couple of seconds. You'll say, okay, there it is, 25. 25 divides into 50, so 25 goes into my perfect land. Okay, how do I figure out what goes in non-perfect land? Sometimes I also refer to this as the trash can. What goes in the garbage can. Why do you throw away garbage? Why do you throw away trash? Well, you can't use it anymore. And it's the same thing up here. I can do something with 25. I'm not going to put that in the trash can. I can simplify that. But I can't do anything with this number in non-perfect land or in the trash can. And how do I figure out what number goes in here? I simply take this number divided by my perfect land. 50 divided by 25 gives me 2. Or another way you can think about it is 25 times what gives me 50. 2 times 25 gives me back to 50. Okay. The whole point of doing this, guys, is to put something in perfect land. I can do something with the square root of 25. I can simplify that. The square root of 25 is just 5. And then I'm left with a non-perfect land, or sometimes I just call it trash. I'm left with the garbage. I can't do anything with the square root of 2. Okay, you can't simplify that any further. So my final answer is 5 times the square root of 2. Now once again, guys, you can use Mr. Manice's trick here to check all of these. Okay, so just like I've showed you guys to assign a number to every letter. In this case we don't have any variables, so I can just literally just type in the square root of 50. And guys, I don't care what that number is. Don't care what it is. We think that the square root of 50 is the exact same thing as 5 root 2. So let's type in 5 root 2. Ta-da, bam, they match. Guys, you can do this on every single one of the quiz problems. Every single one, you can check this. You don't need to have to wonder, Mr. Manice, is this right? Is this correct? You've got a guaranteed lottery ticket in your pocket if you know how to check these, okay? So please, please, please check. Okay, let's go to the next one, square root of 80. Okay, 80 is not on this list. Okay, that's not a perfect square, so I got to figure out what is the highest number. And guys, if you pick a perfect square that's not the highest, then you're going to get an answer that will check out, but it won't be fully simplified, and you're going to lose some points. Okay, so you've got to figure out what is the highest of these numbers that goes into 80. Okay, does 4 go into 80? And if you're not sure, guys, use your calculator. If you're not sure, if you always struggle with math, just type it in. Does 80 divide by 4? Yes, it does. Okay, so 4 goes into it. What about anything else? 9 obviously doesn't. That's odd. What about 16? 80 divided by 16. Oh, look, 16 goes into 80. And you got to keep going. Okay, 25, no, obviously not. 36, does 36 divide into 80? Whoops. Does 36 divide into 80? Nope, that's a decimal, so that tells you nope, 36 doesn't go. 49, obviously not, and then of course the rest we can obviously see. Okay, so the highest number that goes into 80 that is a perfect square, that's one of these numbers, is 16. Okay, so I'm going to break this down into perfect land. I'm just going to abbreviate perfect land and non-perfect land. Okay. Perfect land, what goes over here, that's going to be my highest perfect square. That's going to be that number, the 16, because it's perfect. 16 is one of our numbers. It is a perfect square. Okay. How do I figure out what goes in the trash can? You just divide 80 divided by 16, and that's what gives me the 5 number. Okay. 16 times 5 does equal to 80. Okay. Now, perfect land, I can do something with that. Square root of 16 is just 4. And then I'm left with the non-perfect land, or the trash can, the garbage. Okay, 4 root 5. All right, let's keep going. 192. Ugh, 192. Mr. Maniz, what are you doing to me? It's a pretty high number. It's not quite so easy to figure out the highest number that goes into it. So let's just start. Let's just go down the list. Let's use our calculator. Let's start. 1 goes into everything, so you never use 1. Okay, what about 4? 192 divided by 4. Okay, that works. Anything higher? You can just, if you're not good with numbers, guys, just go down the list. 192 divided by 9. Nope, that doesn't work. 192 divided by 16. Ooh, that works. All right, 25. Obviously, 25 doesn't because it ends in 5. 36. 192 divided by 36. No, that doesn't work. 49. 192 divided by 49. Oh, that doesn't work. 192 divided by 64. Ooh, that works. Okay. 81, 192 divided by 81. Okay, that doesn't work. Obviously, 100 doesn't go into it, and these higher numbers don't. Okay, so going through this simple process real quick, guys, you can easily find the highest number that divides into the number that we're talking about here. Okay, so 64 is my highest perfect square. Okay, so I'm going to break this down into perfect land and non-perfect land, PL and PL. Okay, so my highest perfect square we said was 64. Okay, and what goes in the trash can? What goes in the garbage? Well, it's going to be that other number. Okay, 64 goes into 192 3 times, so 3 goes in the trash can. What is the square root of 64? The square root of 64 is 8. So this simplifies to 8 times the square root of 3. Okay. All right, now, what do we do when we start having variables here? Okay, so we're going to kind of treat it the same way, but I kind of take these one at a time. So at first, my brain doesn't see the n to the 4th. My brain only sees the 20. So it's almost like I kind of draw an imaginary line down through the number and the different variables in the problem. Okay. So first of all, I'm just going to look at the square root of 20. Okay. Can that be simplified? All right. So I'm still going to break it down into perfect land and non-perfect land. Okay. What is the highest number, the highest perfect square that goes into 20? And that's going to be 4. 9 doesn't. Of course, 16 doesn't. Okay, so that's going to give me a 4 over here. Okay, what goes in the trash can? What goes in non-perfect land? 20 divided by 4 is 5, so 5 goes in the garbage. Now, how do I know whether or not a variable is a perfect square? And that is simply to see whether or not it's even or odd. Okay, in this case, the exponent is even. So the whole n to the 4th, the whole thing comes down here into perfect land, because n to the 4th is a perfect square. Okay, I can multiply something by itself and get n to the 4th. I cannot do that if it were odd. If I just have a n to the 7th, there's nothing I can multiply by itself that will give me n to the 7th. But if I have the square root of n to the 6th, then I can break that down as to n to the third times n to the third, because I just add my exponents together, and that gives me n to the sixth. So anytime your variable is exponent on the variable is even, that is a perfect square. Okay. So in this case, 4n to the fourth goes in the perfect land, and 5 goes in the trash can. Now I can simplify this. Again, taking one at a time. What is the square root of 4? That's 2. And then what is the square root of n to the fourth? And the way that you do that is on perfect squares, the index here is an understood 2. It's taking the square root of the second root. So whatever exponent my variable is, I simply just divide that by the index. I just divide that by 2. And that gives me n squared. And that makes sense, right? Because n squared times n squared gets me right back to n to the fourth. So the square root of n to the fourth is n squared. And then I have my trash can, the non-perfect land. And there's my final answer. If you're not sure, let's check it. Okay, so I'm going to type in exactly what I see. Square root of 20 alpha n to the fourth power. Okay, get some number. Don't care what that number is. I just need a number. We think that's the same thing as 2 alpha n squared times the square root of 5. Oh, look, what do you know? They match. Okay, guys, if you don't have me for a teacher and you have no idea what I'm doing here with these letters, I have a video on my website under other videos that will show you how to use this trick in algebra where you assign a number to every letter of the alphabet on your calculator. I'm not going to go through that here for sake of time in this video, but I'll show you how to set all that up. And anytime you simplify something in algebra, whether it's simplifying a polynomial, a quadratic expression, radicals, exponents, or whatever, you can use this little trick. We just type in the original problem, type in your simplified answer, because what we're saying is the square root of 20n to the fourth is the exact same as 2n squared square root of 5. And so you just type in the numbers and the numbers that are assigned to your variables, and you just make sure these numbers match, and you're guaranteed to get the problem right. So check out that other video if you don't have any idea what I'm talking about. Okay, square root of 100n, perfect land, non-perfect land. Okay, what is the highest perfect square that goes into 100? Well, 100 is a perfect square. It's one of our numbers on the list. So the whole 100 goes into perfect land. Okay, what about n? Is that a perfect square? No, because it's odd. Okay, so if it's odd, I got to put this n to the 1, I got to put it in the trash can, or non-perfect land. Okay, square root of 100 is 10, so my final answer is just 10 square root of n. Okay, number 6, we got the square root of 72x squared y to the fourth. Okay, so again, let's break these down one at a time. 72, is that a perfect square? No, it's not on the list. What's the highest number that does go into 72? Okay, well, again, this is probably the last time I do this, guys, just to show you for illustration purposes. Let's start down the list. 72 divided by 4. If you're a math whiz, obviously you don't need to do any of this stuff. You guys can just figure this out in your head. I'm doing this for the benefit of those that not so great with numbers, have always struggled in math, that kind of thing. All right, 72 divided by 4. Okay, that works. Well, what about 72 divided by 9? That works. What about 72 divided by 16? No. It's 25 obviously doesn't work. 72 divided by 36. Oh, that works. Okay. 49, of course, doesn't go. That's too high. Okay. So my highest perfect square that goes into 72 is this bad boy right here, 36. Okay. So now I'm going to break this down into perfect land, non-perfect land. Okay, so 36 is the highest number. So what goes in the trash can? 72 divided by 36 is 2, because 2 times 36 is 72. Okay, here we go. The variables. X squared, is that perfect? Yes, because it's even, so I throw the whole guy in perfect land. Y to the fourth, is that perfect? Yes, because it's even, so I throw the whole thing into perfect land. So the only thing in the trash can in non-perfect land is 2. Now I can simplify all this stuff. The square root of 36 is 6. The square root of x squared, remember guys, this is the second square. You just divide the exponent by 2, or whatever the index is. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that's 6x. 4 divided by 2 gives me a y squared. And then I'm just left with the garbage, the non-perfect land. 6xy squared times the square root of 2. All right, let's keep going. Okay, we got square root of 64, x to the fourth, y to the third. 64 is one of our perfect squares, so that whole thing goes into perfect land. Okay, x to the fourth, that's even, so the whole thing goes in perfect land. Y to the third is not even. Okay, so when you have an odd exponent here, guys, what you've got to do is you've got to drop it down from the odd to the next even number below it, which will always be one less than that number. So if I drop down y to the third, that drops down to a y squared. So I'm going to put a y squared in perfect land. And if I drop down, guys, every single time you're working with square roots, every time you drop it from an odd to the next lowest one, you will always have one of those single variables left over. So if I drop it from y to the 27th down to y to the 26th, I'm still going to put one y in the garbage. If I drop it down from 98 to 99, from 99 down to 98, I'm still going to put one y in the garbage can. Okay. Square root of 64 is 8. Square root of x to the fourth divided by 2 gives me x squared. Divide that 2 by 2, that gives me y. And then I'm left with the non-perfect land. I'm left with the garbage. Okay, number 9. Okay, 75 is not one of our numbers. The highest number that goes into 75, I'm going to start doing this a little quicker, is going to be 25. So perfect land, I've got 25. Non-perfect land, I have 3. 75 divided by 25 is 3. M to the third is not even. Okay, so I've got to drop it down to m squared. And what does that mean? How many goes in the trash can? 1 m goes in the trash can. N is odd, and I can't drop it down because that's just an n to the first. So that 1 n goes in the trash can. All right, square root of 25 is 5. Oops, 5. Square root of m squared is just m. And then I'm left with the garbage. Okay, keep going. Last couple ones down here at the bottom. Zoom in just a little bit. Okay. All right, 24 h squared, j squared, k to the fifth. Okay, perfect land, non-perfect land. Okay, 24. What's the highest of these numbers that goes into 24? That's going to be 4. What's left over in the garbage can? 24 divided by 4 is 6. H squared, is that perfect? Yes, because it's even, so throw the whole h squared in there. J squared is even, throw the whole j squared in there. K to the fifth is not, so I've got to drop that down to k to the fourth, and then that means 1k is left over, because k to the first times k to the fourth gives me right back to k to the fifth. All right, can't do anything with the garbage. I can simplify all this stuff. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of h squared is just h. Square root of j squared is just j. And then divide the 4 by the 2. The square root of k to the fourth is k squared. And then I'm left with the garbage. Okay. Last one on the front. Perfect land, non-perfect land. Okay, what's the highest perfect square that goes into 80? Okay, 4 does. What about 16? Try it. 80 divided by 16. Oh, yeah, that does work. What about 36? We've already done this one, actually. We've already done it. So 16 is the highest perfect square that goes. So 16 goes in the perfect land. This 5 on the calculator. Okay, that 5 goes in the trash can. X is odd, trash can. Y to the 12th is even, perfect land. Z to the 5th is odd, so I got to drop that down to Z to the 4th, and I put a single Z in the trash can. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of y to the 12th, remember we're dividing this by 2. 12 divided by 2 gives me y to the 6th. Divide the 4 by 2, that gives me z squared. And then I have the garbage. 4 y to the 6th z squared times the square root of 5xz. Okay, let's flip on over to the back. Okay, operations with radicals. This is combining like terms, apples and oranges. Apples, apples, apples. I can combine those because the radicands are the same. So I have 2 apples plus 4 apples plus 2 apples, and that gives me 8 apples. Okay, there's really not much to think about there. Okay, the next one. All right, apples, apples, oranges. Okay, so remember, guys, when you're doing operations with radicals, subtraction and addition in particular, you've got to ask yourself, are my radicals fully simplified? Okay, square root of 2, square root of 2, square root of 5, those are fully simplified. I can't, there are no perfect squares. None of these numbers that go evenly into those are too small. Okay, so here I can combine my apples and apples. I've got 4 apples minus 3 apples, that's 1 apple. Okay, so if you want to imagine, going back to this problem, guys, if you want to imagine, these are like x's. This is the way I explained it to my students. This is like 2x plus 4x plus 2x. 2x plus 4, that's x. 2x plus 4x plus 2x is equal to 8x. It's the same thing here. I have 2 root 6's plus 4 root 6's plus 2 root 6's. I have 8 root 6's. Okay, $4 minus $3 is $1. All right, and then plus the 4 root 5. I cannot add these guys because that's apples and that's oranges. Can't combine those, so that's the best I can do. Number 13, okay, I have apples, oranges, and bananas. They're all different, so I can't combine any of these as it stands, but you got to ask yourself, can I simplify any of these? Can't simplify the square root of 6 or root 2, those are too small, but I can simplify the square root of 18. So the way I taught this in class to my students was I kind of just want you guys to just focus on the square root of 18. I don't want you to even look at the negative 2. Okay, we'll deal with the negative 2 in a second. I'm going to break this down into perfect land and non-perfect land. Okay, just like we did on the front side of the quiz review. All right, what's the highest perfect square? Get our cheat sheet back. The highest perfect square that goes into 18, that's going to be 9. So 9 goes in perfect land. 18 divided by 9 is 2. 2 goes in the trash can. Square root of 9 is 3. Okay, so the square root of 18 in the box is the exact same thing as 3 times the square root of 2. Okay, we're saying they're identical. But we're multiplying the square root of 18 times its negative 2. So I have to come down here and also multiply the 3 square root of 2, which is the same thing as root 18. I got to also multiply that times negative 2. And here you multiply your coefficients. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. So I have negative 6 root 2. All right, then I have the rest of the original problem. Then I have this plus 2 root 6, and then I'm just bringing these down, and then I have another plus 2 root 2. And now I can combine like terms. The radicals is, guys, just think about combining like terms, x's and y's, apples and oranges. I have negative 6 apples plus 2 apples. Okay, that's negative 4 apples. And then I have plus 2 oranges. I can't do anything with that. So that's my final answer. Negative 4 root 2 times 2 root 6. Okay, and of course we can check that. Let me check every single bit of this. Negative 2 square root of 18. Okay, now look at my cursor, guys. Depending on your calculator, when you're checking these, notice my cursor is still inside the house. I got to get outside of that house. So I got to press this over button. Press over. Now my cursor's outside. Plus 2 root 6, press over, get outside, plus 2 root 2. Get a number? Fine, whatever. Let's type in our simplified answer, negative 4 root 2, get outside the house, plus 2 root 6. And oh look, they're the same thing. Alright, we get to move on, 100% confidence that we got that right. Alright, root 6, root 24, root 54, my goodness. Can't simplify root 6. I can simplify the square root of 24. I can break that down. I can also break down the square root of 54. Okay, so I got perfect land, non-perfect land, perfect land, non-perfect land. Okay, again, I'm not looking at the 2 yet. I'm just breaking down square root of 24. The highest perfect square that goes into that is 4. 6 goes in the trash can. So that's going to be 2 root 6. All right. But then remember, I'm multiplying this times this 2 out front. Okay, I'm just going to leave it like that for now. I'm going to go ahead and bring down the beginning part of the problem. 3 root 6 plus 2 times 2 root 6. And then plus 2 times whatever the square root of 54 breaks down into. Highest perfect square that goes into that is 9. 6 goes in the trash can. Square root of 9 is 3. And then times the trash can. But remember, I'm multiplying 2 times all of this. Okay, can't do anything with 3 root 6. 2 times 2 is 4, so that's plus 4 root 6. 2 times 3 is 6, so that's plus 6 root 6. And now look, I got apples, apples, and apples. 3 apples plus 4 apples is 7, plus 6 is 13. So I have 13 apples, or 13 times the square root of 6. Okay, number 5. Okay, square root of 8, square root of 5, can't do anything with that. Square root of 18. I can break both of these down. Okay, so I've got 2. I can break down the square root of 8. I can break that down into perfect land, 4, times non-perfect land, 2. Okay, square root of 4 is 2. So it's 2 times 2, square root of 2. Then I got this minus 2 root 5 that I can't do anything with. So I just bring that down, bring that straight down. And now I have plus 3 times whatever square root of 18 breaks down into. Perfect land is 9, non-perfect land is trash can. Square root of 9 is 3, and then times the trash. Okay, because it's 3 times this, so it's 3 times the square root of 9, which is 3. And now I multiply. 2 times 2 is 4, minus the 2 root 5. 3 times 3 is 9, so plus 9 times the square root of 2. And now the only thing I can combine is 4 apples plus 9 apples is 13 apples. So that's 13 root 2 minus this 2 root 5. And that's my answer. And guys, it doesn't matter. If you were to put the negative 2 root 5 in front, if you'd written your final answer as negative 2 root 5 plus 13 root 2, that's the same exact thing. Okay, it doesn't matter how you write it. 4 plus 7 is the same thing as 7 plus 4. Okay, now we've got some multiplication here. Okay, we're going to multiply. When you multiply, guys, there's no plus or minus sign here. When you multiply, you can multiply the numbers inside the radicand, okay, inside the radical. All right, and then you can also multiply the coefficients out front. But since there's just a 1 here, 1 times 5 is just 5. And then times the square root, I just multiply the 2 and 3. So that's just 5 times the square root of 6. And that's literally all we can do on that one. Number 17, all right, I'll multiply the coefficients first. Negative 4 times an understood 1 is just going to be negative 4. And then I multiply the square root of 20 times the square root of 15. So I'm going to multiply 20 times 15, and that gives me 300. Okay, but you gotta remember, you gotta look to see, is that fully simplified? If we get our cheat sheet back, surely that's a red flag. Hey, wait a minute, one of these perfect squares goes into 300. 100 goes into it. Okay, so I can break this down into perfect land and non-perfect land. Okay, I still got this negative 4 out front. So perfect is going to be 100. The trash can is going to be 3. 300 divided by 100 is 3. And then I've got the square root of 100, which is 10. And then times the trash. Okay, but I'm still multiplying all that times negative 4. Okay, so you've got to go back and multiply this negative 4 times the 10. And that's going to give you negative 40 times the square root of 3. Okay. All right. Home stretch here, last 3. Okay, this one starts to get a little bit tricky. So now we got parentheses when we are trying to multiply radicals. So again, if you just imagine these were x's and y's, if you have something like 2x times y plus 3x, I'm just going to simply distribute here. Okay, it's the same concept. So we're going to distribute here. All right, I always multiply my coefficients first. Coefficients 2 times 1 is just a 2. And then I do multiply these together. Square root of 10 times the square root of 10. I'll do this over here on the side. Square root of 10 times the square root of 10 is the square root of 100. But the square root of 100 is just 10. So when you multiply the square root of a number times the square root of that same number, you just get that number. So square root of 10 times the square root of 10 is just 10. Okay, so that's 2 times 10 because we're multiplying 2 times all this stuff. And now I'm going to distribute over here. Do your coefficients first. 2 times 3 is 6. And this is a plus here. There's a plus sign. So plus 2 times 3 is 6. And then I multiply the two numbers in the radicand. 10 times 2 times the square root of 20. Okay, so this simplifies. This is just going to be 20 plus 6 times the square root of 20. Now I can't combine these. That's a constant, and this is a radical. However, I can simplify the square root of 20. That breaks down. I have 20 plus 6 times. This is going to break down into perfect land. Highest perfect square that goes into 20 is 4. And non-perfect land, 20 divided by 4 is 5. Okay. I'll just come over here. Alright, so I still have the 20. Okay, the square root of 4 is 2. Okay, so this is like 6 times 2 root 5. Okay, 6 times 2 is 12. And we got the plus sign, so that's plus 12 square root of 5. So let me do that one more time in case that was confusing. Start back up here at this step. 20 plus 6 root 20. Okay, so once again, if it helps you on the quiz tomorrow, guys, put a box around the thing that you're simplifying. The square root of 20 breaks down into the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. And the square root of 4 is 2. So the square root of 20 simplifies to 2 root 5. They're the same thing. However, I'm multiplying 6 times all this stuff. Okay, and then I'm adding all this to 20. Okay, so 6 times 2 root 5 gives me 12 root 5. And this is my final answer. You can always rewind the video, guys, if you go through a problem and you still didn't click. Okay. All right, last two here, number 19. All right, so we are going to I'm gonna. Okay, yeah, I guess I could still do this. I'm gonna draw my little distribution arrow. All right, so multiply your coefficients first. 2 times 3 is going to be 6. Square root of 15 times the square root of 5. 15 times 5 is the square root of 75. All right, so next we've got, all right, and now we're going to distribute the 2 root 15. We're going to multiply that times 3. I don't have a radical, so I just multiply the 2 coefficients. 3 times 2 is plus 6 root 15. Okay. All right, so now can I simplify either one of these? I can simplify 75. What's the highest perfect square that goes into 75? That's 25. What goes in the trash can? 3. 3 times 25 is 75. Bring down the 6. Square root of 15, I can't simplify that. There are no perfect squares that go into 15. So that's just going to be plus 6 root 15. Square root of 25 is 5. So I have 6 times 5, square root of 3, plus the 6, square root of 15. And then 6 times 5 is 30. So I have 30 root 3 plus 6 root 15. And that is my simplified answer. Okay, all right, last one here. All right, so square root of 15 times, we're going to distribute here. There's no coefficient here, so I just multiply 2 times 1. That's going to be 2. Now multiply 15 times 3 inside the radicand. That's going to be square root of 45. And then I'm also going to distribute this way. Again, I don't have a coefficient, so I just multiply 5 times 1. And I multiply the 2 radicand numbers. 15 times 2 is the square root of 30. And then I got to see if either of these break down. The square root of 45 does break down. Look at your cheat sheet again if you need to. The highest number that goes, the highest perfect square that goes into 45 is 9. So it's going to be 2 times the square root of 9 times the trash can. 45 divided by 9 is 5. So 5 goes in the non-perfect land in the garbage. Plus the 5 square root of 30. There's no number. None of these perfect squares divide evenly into 30. So I can't do anything with that. Square root of 9 is 3. So that's 2 times 3 square root of 5 plus 5 square root of 30. And then 2 times 3 is 6. So I have 6 root 5 plus 5 square root of 30. Okay, and that's the best we can do. I wanted to go back real quick before I finish this video. I want to go back real quick. I want to do one of these, check one of these that has a bunch of variables in it. Okay. So again, if you've already programmed your calculator and have letters to all these numbers assigned to all these letters, this will work. So square root of 80x, 80x alpha y raised to the 12th. Notice my cursor's up here in the superscript, guys. This is why I want to show you this. You can't leave it up there. You got to bring it back down. So once again, I got to press this over button right here. Press over to drop your cursor back down. And then I'm going to type in the z to the 5th. Alpha z raised to the 5th. Okay, get some number. Oh, whoops. My x's on these calculators must be messed up. Yeah, my y is 0. Should be 26 store alpha x. 27 store alpha y, 28 store alpha z. Okay, and again, I've got a video on this, guys, if you don't know what I'm talking about here, how to assign numbers to all your letters, and now it should work. Square root of 80, x alpha y raised to the 12th, drop your cursor down, alpha z raised to the 5th, and now we get some number. Again, I don't care what that number is. So now let's type in our finalized answer. 4 alpha y raised to the 6th, drop your cursor down, alpha z squared, and then times the square root of 5x alpha z. Oh, look, they match. Okay, I know that takes a few seconds, maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds to check these, but guys, I'm telling you, please check your answers. If you know what you're doing, there's no excuse for not making 100 or at least an A and B, A or a B on this quiz if you study and you're able to check your answers. All right, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Wish you good luck on the quiz, and we'll see you on the next one.